In this video, we're going to explore whether you can buy a house in New Zealand or whether you can get a home loan for a house in New Zealand if you are a non-resident. So it turns out these are two very different questions, and we're going to explore them right here in this video, so stay tuned. Remember when I said buying a house and getting a loan for a house are two different things? Of course you do. That was like a second ago. Let me explain a little bit further. The Overseas Investment Office, which is the ruling governing body for any foreign buyers in New Zealand, have said you cannot buy a property in New Zealand if you are not a resident or a citizen of New Zealand. The banks, however, have said that, look, we'll give you some money if you're a work permit holder, and they'll give you up to 70% of the loan with a few other conditions. The problem is that if the OIO, Overseas Investment Office, says you can't buy property, the bank's not going to give you the money. It's as simple as that. That's a bit like telling your 14-year-old child, of course you can get a car as soon as you get a license. Eventually you will need to buy them that car when they get their license, but for now your money is safe. So the banks have a similar policy to that. There are a few conditions, and you can actually get money from the bank if you're a non-resident and on a work permit, but it's not to buy your first home. Where the banks and the Overseas Investment Office actually do see eye to eye is when you're a resident or a permanent resident of New Zealand. And yes, there is a difference. Being a permanent resident means you have no travel conditions on your visa. You've been in the country for 183 days within the last 12 months. If that's the case, congratulations, you're the same as a citizen and you can apply for any home loan you want and buy any property you want. Simple as that. The same goes if you are a resident visa holder, but you have some travel conditions on that visa and you've been in the country for 183 days within the last 12 months. Same thing applies. You can apply for a home loan with no problem. The problem comes in when you are a resident visa holder with travel conditions and you haven't been in the country for at least 6 months. If that's the case, you need to apply to the OIO, Overseas Investment Office, for a special consent. Now the application is about $2,040 and it takes about 10 days for them to approve or deny your request. Once you have that approval, that's when you can go and buy your first home. Be warned though, do not sign a sale and purchase agreement unless you know if you can buy a property in New Zealand. So basically, first approach the OIO and say, can I buy a property? If they say yes, then go ahead and sign the sale and purchase agreement. If you go ahead with a sale and purchase agreement without knowing if you can buy a property and it falls through as a result of that, you could be fined up to $300,000. So that's quite a bit. The other side is you can still sign the sale and purchase agreement, but in the conditions you need to say you need approval and consent from the OIO. If that's the case and they say no, you can still get out of the contract if you need to. The banks will also require you to show that you are eligible to buy a property in New Zealand before they go ahead with a home loan. Your solicitor will also be double checking that to make sure, and they'll send the instructions back to the bank to say yes, you are allowed to do that. Your solicitor can also help you with the process if you want it, but it's fairly easy just to apply for that online with the OIO. Now let's see what the banking criteria is to actually get the loan in the first place. If you're a citizen or a permanent resident holder, no problem, you can go up to 90, sometimes 95%, depending on the bank and even some non-bank lenders. So there are a few options out there if you're a citizen or a permanent resident holder. The difference comes in when you are a permanent resident, but still eligible for applying for a home loan. So you've been in the country for more than 183 days. You will need to show that you are living and working in New Zealand. Hopefully you are. And you cannot use your overseas income, which makes sense because you're working in New Zealand. They want you to use those funds to pay for the property, and they're not relying on any overseas income, which could be volatile. You will also need a 20% deposit, which can come from the sale proceeds from your previous home, wherever you come from, or funds that you've saved up. But just keep in mind, these deposit sources need to be verified and they need to know where it comes from. The reason why is the anti-money laundering law in New Zealand is quite strict. They need to know where those funds came from and what you're going to do with it. They don't want you to be laundering money through the property process in New Zealand. And then the last one is you need to be able to meet the bank in person, which again makes sense because they need to verify that you are an actual person and not just a hologram that came in to sign some papers. Holograms are great, but we're not there yet. So as I said earlier, you can actually get a loan from the banks if you are a work permit holder, but you still need permission from the Overseas Investment Office, which you're not going to get. So don't even try. But anyway, this is what the bank says. you need to have a 30% deposit as opposed to 20%. You need to have 12 months left on your work permit. And you also need to have intention to apply for permanent residence in New Zealand. And when I say intention, I mean actual intention. Not like, I want to lose some weight. There's a chocolate in the cupboard. No, you actually need to have the intention to apply for permanent residence. So why do banks then have a work permit holder loan if you cannot get a property in the first place? Well, the main reason is for things like you're a non-resident and you're wanting to buy a property with a resident holder or a citizen, you can still be part of that loan. But as far as getting the loan through as a work permit holder, it's not going to happen. I actually phoned the Overseas Investment Office and spoke to them and had a nice conversation with the lady, and she told me there's no way that if you're on a work permit that you can get a loan in New Zealand. So the best result would be wait until you are a resident of New Zealand, 183 days in the country within the last 12 months, and then apply for your home loan. Or at least go for the consent before then. Anyway, if you found this interesting and informative, let me know. I'd love to hear your thoughts. And until you see me next time, see you later.